Hi everybody, my name is RB Alverna. Welcome to the YouTube series, The Backpack.
Hey guys, thank you for coming out today. We're going to be talking a little bit about moments of toughness. I think we've all been raised in a culture where being emotional and being vulnerable is not something that's welcomed as men. Instead, we're expected to either suppress whatever emotions we're feeling or be tough. So we're going to really, talk a little bit about what we've experienced and how we have maybe just not embraced feelings of sadness or feelings of grief, or really just allowed ourselves to feel in general. So we got 2 questions, and I'm just going to start.
Go ahead.
So how has the idea of manning up affected your ability to be vulnerable as an adult, Joseph?
Well, manning up is kind of the antithesis of being vulnerable. So we could start and end right there if we really wanted to. I guess if I was going to elaborate on that, yeah, it probably prompts you to kind of ignore healthy steps when it comes to going through stuff. So I'll just give an example. Maybe it might be healthier to vent about the situation. Let's imagine that venting is actually like the healthiest thing. I don't know. You'd be better able to tell me if that's the truth. But like,
No, you're right.
or like actually saying to somebody like, "Yo, this isn't really killing me this week. Like, this is really bad." When you kind of man up, you're not thinking about those steps. You're not thinking about like what's healthiest or like the healthiest emotions to display. You're just thinking about the end result. Like, yo, this is the end result. I know I gotta do this, so I'm just gonna do it. I'm a man up and do it. I'm a man up and work these 14 hours. I'm a man up and like go through this pain. I'm a man up and like when all of the manning up could be unhealthy. So that's my response to that, I would say.
Okay. So when I think of how to quickly answer that question, I probably have a book right, that I can give, but I'm gonna give you the most recent thing.
Yeah.
So in 2017, as I'm sitting on the couch watching TV, it's like 9 o'clock at night, I get a phone call from my cousin.
Mm-hmm.
She says, "Yo, you gotta come down, something's wrong with grandma." I'm thinking grandma fell, right? It's nothing it's a Sunday night. I'm not even remotely thinking that something bad happened. I just thought maybe she just fell. I get up, put my shoes on, clothes on, and I go over. They live in Irvington, right? So I go. And I get there, I find my cousin outside. She's standing outside.
Yeah.
Not saying anything. I'm like, what's going on here? Right? The door's wide open, so I run up the steps. Turn the corner to enter the house. My grandma's on the floor, dead. And you have paramedics trying to resuscitate her. Mm-hmm. Right? So immediately, right then and there, my father, who was the oldest, right, lives in Georgia, right? And I have to then become this responsible grandson because I'm my father's son, right? Yeah. So my father's like, I call my mom. My mom says, "Well, you just gotta toughen up real quick. So you gotta step up and
You need to control the
situation and make sure that nothing gets out of control." So I'm like, all right, cool, because that's what I'm used to doing, always being in control.
Yeah.
Right. When we fast forward to the funeral, everything that I did leading up to the funeral, in terms of preparation, making sure that certain things were taken care of and all that, never having a moment to grieve.
Yeah.
I grieve, right? I'm crying, I'm trying to figure it out, trying to like understand how is it that my grandmother, who I just had a conversation with on Friday, because she was watching my daughter, right, before Ruby started going to school, she was watching my daughter. So this could easily have happened while she was watching my daughter, right? She had a heart attack, so it could have easily happened. So I'm crying. And you can hear me crying, right? Because I'm in the front row in the church, crying. My mother gets up from where she's sitting at, comes to the front of the church, stands in front of me and tells me I gotta stop crying. She says, you gotta listen, she said in Creole, "Mete gas masu," right? Meaning, man up.
Basically, yes, man.
Yes, she says, "Man up." Jenny, who's sitting behind me, hears it, but not till years later, I recognize that Jenny doesn't like that was done, because now I'm not grieving at all, right? That moment in which I should have been grieving, I wasn't allowed to.
It's like you weren't given permission to actually.
So even at that time I was 33 years old, right? So it was a moment where I had to release, right? There was so much going on before even that stuff, before the death of my grandmother, right? So it was a time that I needed to grieve, and I wasn't allowed to grieve because of this cultural belief that men can't be vulnerable.
Yeah.
And that's why when you ask that question, I can easily remember that. That's the first thing that comes to my mind is that day when my grandmother passed away. The fact that that's the first time I ever dealt with death like that. Mm-hmm. You walk in and then my grandmother's on the floor. Yeah. This is the woman that I was just talking to, like I said, on Friday. Mm-hmm. How she was getting on me about something, right? And I was picking Ruby up. Yeah. And then that Sunday comes and then now she's gone. Mm-hmm. So how am I really moving on from? How am I really gonna ever? And I grieve it does a little bit better now, because through therapy, yeah. Right? But I should have been able to grieve that day, mm-hmm. But I wasn't.
And what's interesting about your story is typically when something like that happens and it's the height of a crisis, there really isn't that much time to actually soak it in and actually grieve and actually feel. And then, like you said, you were preparing for the funeral, so you had this period where you're just going and you're still on go.
It became a normal thing, because anybody who knows me, like, I'm always busy, right? Yeah. So it was like, okay, this is another thing on my plate that I gotta handle, right? Mm-hmm. I remember coming home that night after, going to the hospital and signing the paperwork and stuff like that, the night that she passed. I remember sitting on the bed and I can feel Jenny's eyes on my back, right? Yeah. I think she wanted to ask me, but I wasn't nowhere in a position to even express how I felt. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right? I was in shock. Mm-hmm. Complete shock. Yeah. Because that's the first thing I thought about. What if this would have happened while she was watching my love? Mm-hmm. So.
And I think when you started your release, that's when it was taken away from you.
Yeah, my mother took it from me. Yeah. And it's a constant thing where the minute I feel like I need to be able to grieve, I can't do it. Mm-hmm. I can't, because somebody is telling me, no, you can't. Yeah. So that's how it's always been for me. Wow. Yeah.
So there's a bunch of things going on in my head right now. Like for you, right? I feel like this thing right now of grieving and all that good stuff is like, making you feel uncomfortable. So you're trying to like pass off the buck so that you don't feel uncomfortable. But the reality is that right? But that's the reality. Reality is that it's uncomfortable, right? To be emotional, especially when you're taught to not be, right? And so it's okay, man. And I just want you to know that, like, we'll hold you down, man. It doesn't have to. You don't have to live with that on your shoulders, on your back. You feel what I'm saying? And in terms of me, right, I feel like I've always been a little sensitive, right, growing up and all that good stuff. And when I was younger, I hated it, right, because my emotional quotient was always so high, man. Like, I could look at someone and be like, oh man, they must be going through this. They probably weren't, right? But in my head, like, I just created this, like, oh, if her face is like that, or if he's looking like that, then that must mean that he or she is going through this, right? And so I've always been more vulnerable, and I've allowed the counseling to really get me there, right? So that I'm able to be expressive, or as expressive as possible. Yeah. The problem though is the manning up piece, right? It affects my relationships with other dudes, right? So I have a bunch of female friends where I'm able to have those types of conversations and be vulnerable and like push them emotionally and all that good stuff. But I don't really have a group of men who I connect with and be like, yo, how are you feeling today, right? It's really surface level with a lot of my male friends. And then like I didn't realize that I needed to talk about those things until I like went through counseling myself, right? Like that I needed to talk about those things with other men. right? And that like they get me, they would understand, right? One of my homegirls hit me up and was like, "Yo, my husband is going to do X, Y, and Z, but he doesn't have any men to speak to or to challenge him, right? Or to push him on those things." And I never really thought about it like that. I knew that I didn't do it personally, but I'm like, oh, it's somebody for somebody. Like, it's somebody who could do that for him. I didn't think that it was a general thing.
This is an incredible point. Honestly.
So I'm more intentional these days, and so I try to be as vulnerable as possible. I'm a very emotional guy, like not like crying, but I'm always focused on like how can I like what's the feeling behind this? How can I put more of my heart into it?
It's definitely something we gotta really help people understand. That when you say you have to be like emotional, or you are emotional, I think because we've been conditioned to believe that you aren't supposed to show emotion. We always link being emotional to crying.
Yeah.
And it's not that. There's other emotions that you're probably observing or even noticing.
Well,
and
I'm happy you just said that, because the emotions that were bottled up in me came out in other ways.
Yeah, because anger is emotion.
So, bro,
right?
Exactly.
And so, like, we look at a woman and she's crying, and we say that she's emotional. But when a guy's been very aggressive or angry, we don't say that he's emotional. We just be like, oh, he's mad. That So somehow that equates to being tough.
Yeah. So, so the bottling up exploded one day, right?
Yeah.
On playing basketball. It's me and my best friend Orlando, right? And I go off. We're losing this game, and I'm like, and I start just cursing this kid out, and he's like, "Yo, you can't do stuff like that, right?" And it wasn't the first time he had told me I had to stop doing that, right? And I was just like, "Nah, I'm good, man. I ain't even worried about it, right? Just brushing it off, making it seem like they're the problem, and I'm not the problem."
Yeah.
On the last time I did that, he was like, "Nah, I'm not coming for basketball anymore, because if we're gonna keep going through this, it can't work, right? Because he felt like he was being embarrassed. He's like, because as a black man, you can't really be out here doing that, right?
Yeah.
But I was really like going in on these kids, like they're younger than me, so I call them kids. But I was going in on them, and he just didn't like it at all.
Yeah.
And then one day he was like, I think you need therapy, bro, like because you just are always upset, right? And then I remember growing up, and people would be like, oh, you always mad, like. It's because all the stuff that's going on, right? So it's just like you start to bottling up. People see it. People ask questions. People probably ask questions amongst themselves.
Yeah.
Right. Somebody might dare. Like as I got older, people got very dareable with it, and they're like, "Yo, you good?" Right? They'll ask me. I'm like, "Yeah." What makes you think I'm not good? Right?
Yeah.
I'll give them. But my smart remarks are good to come out, right? But it was just people really noticing that it was a problem. But unless I notice that there's a problem, unless you notice there's a problem, it's never gonna be able to get dealt with.